Today, we are taking a close and careful look at an important discussion surrounding Iraq's currency reform process, particularly the continued conversation about removing the 3 zeros from the Iraqi dinar, and what that could actually mean. This topic has generated significant attention among Iraqi citizens, economists, and international dinar followers for many years. While many opinions continue to circulate online, today's discussion focuses on understanding the economic concepts behind redenomination, purchasing power, exchange rates, and why public education plays such a critical role whenever a country considers major currency reforms. According to the information being discussed, the proposal presented on Iraqi television explains that removing the 3 zeros would involve a conversion ratio of 1,000 old Iraqi dinar to 1 new Iraqi dinar. Under this explanation, every financial figure throughout the economy would be adjusted proportionally. Bank account balances, salaries, prices, pensions, contracts, invoices, government records, and commercial transactions would all be converted using exactly the same mathematical ratio. In other words, the reform being described is presented as an accounting simplification, rather than an automatic increase in national wealth. This distinction is extremely important, because it helps separate two concepts that are often confused. One concept is redenomination, which changes the face value of the currency by removing zeros while maintaining proportional value throughout the economy. The other concept is revaluation, which refers to an official upward adjustment in the currency's exchange value relative to foreign currencies under a country's exchange rate policy. These are different economic mechanisms, although in some countries, currency reforms have occurred alongside broader monetary policy changes. The report indicates that if the current exchange rate is expressed as approximately 1,310 Iraqi dinar per United States dollar, then after removing 3 zeros, the same exchange relationship would mathematically become about 131 new Iraqi dinar per United States dollar. This does not automatically represent an increase in purchasing power. Instead, it simply expresses the same economic value using smaller numerical figures. To better understand this concept, imagine that a product currently costs 13,100 Iraqi dinar. Under the proposed conversion, the same product would cost 1 new dinar after removing 3 zeros. Likewise, a salary of 1,310,000 old dinar would become 1,310 new dinar. The purchasing ability of that income would remain unchanged if prices, wages, and financial obligations were converted consistently across the economy. This is exactly why economists frequently describe redenomination as a technical adjustment, rather than an event that independently creates wealth. The total value of financial assets does not automatically increase simply because the numbers become smaller. Instead, the purpose is generally to simplify accounting, improve cash handling, modernize payment systems, and make financial records easier for businesses, banks, and consumers to manage. The information referenced in today's discussion also emphasizes that Iraqi television reportedly explained to citizens that purchasing power would be preserved throughout the process. This point reflects an important principle seen in many historical currency reforms around the world. Governments typically seek to reassure the public that a redenomination should not cause people to lose the value of their savings simply because the currency units have changed. Public confidence is one of the most valuable assets any central bank possesses. When citizens understand how a currency conversion works, they are generally less likely to panic, withdraw deposits unnecessarily, or engage in speculative behavior. Education campaigns therefore become an essential component of successful monetary reform. One of the most notable elements of the discussion is the emphasis on education. According to the comments being analyzed, the explanation is intended to prepare Iraqi citizens to understand how the conversion would work before any implementation. From a policy perspective, this approach makes practical sense, because confusion surrounding currency changes can create unnecessary disruptions if people misunderstand what the new numbers actually represent. History offers many examples of countries conducting extensive public awareness campaigns before introducing redesigned currencies or redenominations. Citizens are often shown examples of new banknotes, conversion tables, price comparisons, and frequently asked questions. Retailers receive guidance on displaying both old and new prices during transition periods, while banks update computer systems and train employees to answer customer questions. Such preparation helps minimize operational risk. Modern economies depend on accurate accounting systems, banking infrastructure, payment networks, taxation systems, payroll processing, and government databases. A redenomination affects virtually every financial institution and commercial entity, making careful planning essential. The comments also include the opinion that although purchasing power would remain unchanged for Iraqi citizens during the accounting conversion, international investors could experience different implications. This statement represents an interpretation rather than confirmation of official monetary policy. It is important to distinguish between commentary and formal decisions issued by Iraq's monetary authorities. For international observers, discussions about redenomination often become intertwined with expectations regarding future economic reforms, exchange rate policy, foreign investment, banking modernization, and macroeconomic stability. However, these are separate issues that depend on official policy decisions rather than the mechanical process of removing zeros itself. From an analytical standpoint, any future movement in Iraq's exchange rate would depend on numerous economic factors. These could include inflation trends, foreign exchange reserves, fiscal policy, oil revenues, economic diversification, financial sector reforms, banking stability, investor confidence, regional economic conditions, and decisions made by the Central Bank of Iraq within its monetary policy framework. It is therefore important not to assume that a redenomination automatically guarantees any future exchange rate outcome. Monetary policy decisions are typically based on broader economic objectives and are implemented according to the central bank's assessment of financial stability. For Iraqi citizens, the educational message described in today's report appears designed to reduce misconceptions. Many people naturally associate larger numbers with greater wealth. When those numbers suddenly become much smaller after a redenomination, some may initially believe they have lost money. In reality, if every price, salary, bank balance, and financial obligation changes proportionally, purchasing power remains the same. This concept can initially seem counterintuitive, which is precisely why financial education becomes so valuable. Consumers need confidence that their savings maintain equivalent value after conversion. Businesses need assurance that accounting systems remain accurate. Banks must demonstrate that customer deposits have been converted correctly. Government agencies must ensure pensions, salaries, and benefits continue without disruption. The banking sector also plays a central role in any successful currency transition. Financial institutions would likely spend considerable time updating software, recalibrating automated systems, training employees, and communicating clearly with customers. Payment platforms, debit cards, electronic transfers, online banking services, and accounting software all require technical adjustments to reflect the new denomination accurately. For businesses operating within Iraq, pricing transparency would become especially important. Retailers would need to display converted prices clearly, so consumers could compare values during the transition period. Large companies would revise contracts, invoices, payroll systems, and financial statements. Smaller businesses would also require guidance to ensure compliance with new accounting standards. From a macroeconomic perspective, successful currency reforms generally depend upon public trust. Even technically well-designed reforms can encounter challenges if communication is inconsistent or misunderstood. That is why economists frequently emphasize transparency, predictability, and gradual implementation whenever major monetary changes are introduced. International investors observing Iraq often evaluate a much broader set of indicators beyond currency discussions alone. These include progress in banking reforms, improvements in digital payments, efforts to strengthen anti-money laundering standards, fiscal discipline, infrastructure development, diversification beyond oil revenues, and institutional stability. Together, these factors contribute to perceptions of long-term economic resilience. When analyzing any discussion about the Iraqi dinar, it is also important to remember that monetary reforms are rarely isolated events. They often occur within larger programs aimed at improving financial efficiency, strengthening institutions, encouraging investment, and supporting sustainable economic growth. Currency reform represents only one component of a much broader economic framework. The reference to preserving purchasing power also reflects an important objective of monetary stability. Stable purchasing power allows households and businesses to make financial decisions with greater confidence. When people understand that their wages, savings, and expenses remain proportionally consistent after redenomination, uncertainty can be reduced. For followers of the Iraqi dinar internationally, discussions like today's should be viewed carefully and within their proper context. Commentary from analysts and market observers may offer perspectives on possible developments, but official policy decisions ultimately come from Iraq's monetary authorities and relevant government institutions. Distinguishing between analysis, opinion, and confirmed policy helps maintain a balanced understanding of ongoing developments. Short-term implications of continued public education could include greater awareness among Iraqi citizens regarding how a redenomination would function if implemented. Better understanding may improve public confidence, reduce misinformation, and prepare financial institutions for potential procedural adjustments. However, education itself does not necessarily indicate immediate implementation of any specific policy. In the medium term, continued discussion about currency reform may encourage further examination of Iraq's banking infrastructure, payment systems, accounting standards, and financial modernization efforts. These areas remain important components of broader economic development, regardless of the timing of any currency changes. Looking further ahead, long-term economic outcomes will depend on sustained structural reforms rather than any single monetary action. Continued investment in financial infrastructure, diversified economic growth, responsible fiscal management, institutional transparency, and monetary stability are all factors that contribute to stronger economic performance over time. It is also worth recognizing that simplifying numerical values can produce practical efficiencies. Smaller figures reduce the complexity of bookkeeping, make invoices easier to read, simplify cash transactions, improve accounting accuracy, and enhance the user experience across banking systems. These operational improvements are among the reasons why several countries have undertaken redenominations during periods of monetary reform. Nevertheless, successful implementation requires meticulous planning. Central banks typically coordinate closely with commercial banks, finance ministries, retailers, software providers, payment companies, and international financial partners to ensure operational continuity. Such coordination helps minimize disruptions during the transition from one denomination to another. Another important consideration involves public expectations. Currency discussions often attract considerable attention because they directly affect people's daily financial lives. Responsible analysis therefore requires avoiding assumptions that any single announcement guarantees future exchange rate movements or investment outcomes. Instead, each development should be evaluated within the broader context of official policy, economic data, and institutional reforms. The comments analyzed today illustrate why terminology matters. When people hear phrases such as removing 3 zeros, revaluation, exchange rate adjustment, or purchasing power, they may assume these expressions all describe the same process. In reality, each term has a distinct economic meaning. Understanding those distinctions enables more informed discussions and reduces unnecessary confusion. For Iraqi citizens, the reported emphasis on preserving purchasing power seeks to reassure households that the numerical appearance of money may change, while its proportional value remains consistent throughout the economy. For international observers, the discussion serves as another reminder that currency reform should be analyzed through the lens of official monetary policy, economic fundamentals, and long-term institutional development, rather than speculation alone. As Iraq continues pursuing broader financial reforms, observers will likely continue monitoring developments related to banking modernization, digital payment expansion, regulatory improvements, investment climate reforms, and monetary policy decisions. Each of these areas contributes to the overall economic environment within which any future currency reforms would operate. Ultimately, today's discussion highlights the importance of financial education. Whether analyzing redenomination, exchange rate policy, or broader economic reforms, informed understanding allows both citizens and international followers to interpret developments more accurately. Clear communication between policymakers, financial institutions, businesses, and the public remains essential for maintaining confidence during any period of monetary transition. The reported explanation that a 1,000 to 1 conversion preserves purchasing power reflects a standard accounting principle. associated with redenomination. At the same time, any expectations regarding future exchange rate policy or broader economic impacts should remain grounded in official announcements and verifiable economic evidence rather than assumptions. Balanced analysis requires recognizing both the technical nature of accounting reforms and the wider economic conditions that influence a nation's currency over the long term. Thank you for watching today's Iraqi Dinar news analysis. If you appreciate responsible, factual and balanced coverage of developments affecting the Iraqi dinar and Iraq's economy, remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you can stay informed about future updates. As always, this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, investment, or trading advice, and viewers should rely on official sources and qualified financial professionals when making financial decisions.